Welcome back to an unexpected art lesson where we continue our unexpected art interview with Rob Truszkowski.
Probably the same with a lot of other artists is that like the thing I'm doing right now is the most interesting thing I've ever done in my life, and it's much more interesting than the thing that I just finished, and certainly more interesting than the stuff I did before.
But not quite as interesting as whatever you're going to end up doing next.
Right. Maybe that's that series of experiences that you were describing earlier. And then I kind of jumped on the idea that you're kind of reaching for the next one. There's a light out there. There's another thing to kind of get at. And so I'm being somewhat facetious when I say that everything I've done before is less interesting than what I'm doing now. But there is a certain truth to, gosh, I want to be working on the thing I'm working on now, because if I wanted to work on the stuff I was working on 10 years ago, I would still be doing that.
Exactly. Plus, it's an idea that you've already explored, and you're building on to that. Even if you are currently working on something that's wildly different, you're still carrying with you the things that you learned when you did the old stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So I can tell you, if you like, I can tell you a little bit of what my current projects look like.
What you working on?
What I'm working on now is an extension of the last couple of years, because that's just the nature of it. Through a series of fortunate experiences, I've become obsessed with Japan. And so people will tell you I've become obsessed with Japan. And I take students now to Kyoto on a class trip. We do an actual course. We went back in May. We went in 2023 as well. We're going again in a couple of years. And it all kind of came from an amazing experience I had when I was asked to participate in a group exhibition in Kyoto. And that led to spending some time there on a sabbatical and bringing my family and so on and so forth. So I really love Japan. I really love Kyoto specifically. And I'd never heard the word weeb until a few back from Japan, and a student was like, "Rob, you're such a weeb." And I was like, "Oh, I don't know what that is." And I was shocked and horrified, because I like to stay on top of lingo and language is important to me. And then I realized, oh, okay, so I'm not exactly a weeb, because in my mind, at least, I didn't grow up in a basement in some suburban town yearning for Japan via manga or anime and other pop cultural things.
You are weeb adjacent.
I'm weeb adjacent, absolutely. And I don't think I'm particularly antisocial. I certainly am a white guy. So, I mean, a weeb it's not always that, but, Urban Dictionary describes it as a white antisocial male, typically teenager or just after being a teenager, who's obsessed with Japanese culture via manga and anime, right?
There's a certain vibe that I can't quite put into words that is associated, part of the connotation that goes with calling someone a weeb, and it does not fit you.
So I might be some sort of next gen, where I'm kind of happily agreeing to the term in a sense, And it's like any of these other terms, like nerd, or for me, when I was in high school, if you got called a nerd, that was not what you wanted to be called. But I think that at least in the last 10, 15 years, people have been reclaiming that term, going, no, I can be a nerd. I can be a nerd about whatever I want it to be about. And that can be cool or not, but it doesn't really matter to you. It's about me, It's about kind of claiming that term. So anyways, I really loved that term, and I didn't really know what to do with it. But I had some time off from teaching, and I was working on a project where I was working with paper and I was working with wood. I often do stuff with light boxes and other things like that as well. And what if I tried to learn how to make a Japanese lantern, like a real Japanese lantern, 2 or 3 feet tall, wide, round, with paper wrapped on the outside and ribs of bamboo on the inside. That might be an interesting thing to do, because I love paper, I love wood, I love light, and I could print on paper. And so I set about trying to figure out how to do this. And so I'm actually about to give a talk about this in Ontario, about how I taught myself how to make Japanese lanterns. There's surprisingly little information about this sort of thing on the internet, because in Japan, people might be interested in this, but you don't just become a Japanese lantern maker. You become that because you were born into a family who's been doing it forever and ever and ever. And increasingly, or maybe decreasingly, there is a less and less need for lanterns made out of paper, other than because they harken back to a different time or they have a kind of cultural connotation. But people aren't putting them out in front of their homes anymore to actually light things up. And so you see them in front of restaurants, and you see them for sure in temples and that sort of thing. As a result, there's very little information on the internet about how to actually make this. So I happen to have one, because I had one made for me when I was living in Japan with my name on it. So I was able to look at this thing and get an understanding kind of how it works. And then I found a bunch of all in Japanese YouTube videos that were basically made for school children in Japan to try to teach them why their kind of cultural heritage was important. Here's lanterns. So we're going to visit a lantern shop where the 50-year-old guy is finally allowed to like do the gluing because the 80-year-old grandpa has said you're allowed to do it now, and the 100-year-old great grandpa has decided to retire, you know, and these are grainy, like 480p video. And so I was like screenshotting, translating, trying to figure out what they're saying myself, and then also by translating the text that I could get from it. I found a few of these videos and I said, okay, well, I'm very competent with paper and with wood and with light. I like glue and I've got time. So I'm going to try to figure this out. I set about figuring out some things, building the actual molds to make things, building the tools to make the thing, to bend the wood, to do the thing, like the whole process. And I was humbled dramatically when I was like, okay, so I've got this part made and now all I got to do is this next part. And so I set my camera up, my phone up on my tripod, tried to take a video, and it just went terribly. And I was like, oh my God, I can't put this on Instagram. We're not ready. We're not there yet. And so it was a slow year or so. This is not the Japanese way. They would be doing this for their whole lives. But I made 10 really good lanterns, I think, before I was like, okay, now I'm going to attempt to print on the paper, and then I'm going to build a lantern with the printed text on them. I made these lanterns. I've shown them here and there, but they were most recently shown in Estevan at a solo exhibition there that was called Weeb. And the lanterns are these beautiful things, which, you know, this is a podcast, so your people won't be able to see them, but maybe I'll send you an image of them at some point. They're these, I think, really beautiful paper lanterns with English text, Romaji text that says Weeb down the front in kind of classic red and black and white, what you'd see on the front of a lot of kind of Japanese lanterns. And then superimposed is the word Weeb in Japanese text in katakana. And so the point of this whole process is not about, can I make a lantern because I think I'm Japanese, or I think that I can do it as good as a family that's been doing this for 10 generations. But it was about kind of obsession. And so the long build to the kind of culminating part of this story is that the most recent work I've been doing, which started with the Weeb lanterns and has become some other things as well, has been about exploring obsession, and obsession as an end and a means. And so these lanterns are good, and a real Japanese craftsperson who's been making lanterns their whole lives would be like, oh, everything about this is wrong and everything about that's wrong, and this is not how you would do this, and this is crazy. But it's not the point. And the point is not to say, look what I did, but the point is to say, look what obsession can manifest if it's given a bit of resources and some time and maybe some hubris to kind of add into the mix.
Behold what happens when someone is allowed and supported through exploring their hyperfixation.
Right. Yeah. It sounds, you know, like it sounds kind of funny and ironic, but it's kind of like, behold what happens when you let artists and you support artists. You know, and again, I'm really privileged because I have this wonderful job at the university and a studio and all this, but look what can happen when you let people explore that part of them. And it's not for everyone, and not everyone wants to, can be, or will be an artist, but goodness, society is in big trouble when there aren't artists. And so when you can give artists the opportunity and the space and the time to let those weird things grow, I think really amazing things can happen. And that's why I love working at the U of R, and that's why I really adore my colleagues, because they're all weirdos doing their own weird stuff in their own way. And it enriches the world.
Exactly. Like, I have a friend who does some just truly gorgeous paintings, and she does like these very like liminal space. There's some with cute little frogs. There's one that was punk rock Kermit x Luigi that I didn't know I needed in my life, but I'm like, it's impressive, especially when you let people do the weird thing.
Yeah.
Just do the weird thing.
100%.
You never know what'll happen. If it doesn't turn out, oh well. Find another weird thing to do, or try again.
Yeah. Or delete that video from your camera roll until you're ready to show the world the weird thing that you're doing, or not show it at all. You know, I mean, like, absolutely.
I also think there's nothing wrong with showing where it went wrong.
Sure. Absolutely.
Like where things fell apart. It happens to everyone.
Yeah. No,
and when you show it, it might inspire someone else to, hey, I've been trying, and oh, hey, that's about how well it went when I did it. But also, look at what he's done now.
Yeah.
Maybe I should try again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I actually just reposted a reel on my Instagram the other day from a former student of mine named Julia. And Julia has had a kind of interesting path to becoming an animator. And she's got a huge following on Instagram. She's called the Bookish Animator. I think it's largely because she's so sincere where she comes from and she's very talented. But she just posted this thing about failure. And, in some sense, it's vulnerable, but it's also a bit easier to, I think, talk about failure from the vantage point of having had some success. It's hard, I think, to just say it's all fallen apart and I don't know where it's going. But anyways, I really love this thing that I just reposted of hers the other day because it is so sincere and so earnest. This is how it feels. This is how terrible it feels when things go wrong. And this is how low you can feel. And it's not just hyperbolic, like hard. You can get where you want to go. It's all of the thing. And so, yeah, no, I really do agree that failure is a part of it, despite my misgivings around tipping my cards around failure. It's an important part of it because if you don't fail, it's not interesting. Nothing has really been gained. You have to fight a bit.
Yeah. There's a Winston Churchill quote that I can't remember for memory, but it has to do with failure. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Just because you failed, you still tried. If you don't take that step, you're not going to get any closer to what you want to do. Absolutely. Sometimes you just have to take that step, and sometimes you need a friend to just shove you till you take the step.
Yeah.
I've been that friend before for a couple of people. I've been told I'm a good pesterer, and I'm proud of that.
Excellent. Every artist needs some pestery friends. Absolutely. It's funny that you say that. I think about, so I teach at the U of R and I have students who've never done printmaking before, right through to students who are doing their MFA. They're doing grad school. They've been at other institutions and so on. One of the things that I'm accused is the wrong word, but one of the things I'm kind of accused of is being a cheerleader for printmaking. And the truth is, printmaking is hard. It can set you back, and the path of least resistance is sometimes to go around it. And I do think that aside from my role of do stuff, giving them kind of aesthetic feedback, talking content and concept, and helping them theorize their way through their work, also a big part of it is going keep trying, try that again, see how that works, pump them up a little bit, pat them on the shoulder, give them a candy and say, stay for another 2 hours and see if you can't get through this or see where this is going to take you. So it's a good point that you make around being there. And it's about support, right? It's about support. It's about community. Even if it doesn't seem like a high-minded notion of security, just being there and saying come on, let's do this. Go try that again. Encouraging and enthusiasm and all that sort of stuff. It's possible to be an artist entirely on your own, hidden away, but it's probably a lot better to have people around you that care about you and care about your success.
Yeah. So there's certain work that you are going to be the only one who can do it. You're the only one who can make your art, who can tell your story. But that doesn't mean you have to do it all alone. Having people, having that community is huge. When I started doing fiction podcasts, I was able to start doing it and start chasing after it and keep with it because I had friends. I knew other people who were going on a similar journey. Have I outlasted most of them? Yes. But that's just because I have a bit of a different schedule than most of the others, and apparently I intimidate people with how much I get done in a day.
Oh. Okay.
And I'm I promise I do sleep. I know you think I'm joking. I know you think I'm lying. I do sleep. I promise you. I get a full night's sleep. I'm just also one-woman podcast at work and an indie author publishing under 3 different pen names. It's fine.
There you go.
So are there any mediums outside of printmaking that you have explored and dabbled in?
Well, I mean, like most studio artists, again, I started in drawing when I was a little kid, and I did a lot of painting in high school, and I did painting and drawing and sculpture and photography and everything in university as well. And the anecdote there around the making of the lanterns is, I think, indicative of what my practice looks like. It kind of ebbs and flows out of making things that aren't strictly printmaking to making things that are sculptural or installation, or I'm kind of pushing my own boundaries around what I use. I always come from a place, I think, of being a printmaker, but yeah, no, I can go for longer periods where I'm not making conventional editions of prints, several of an identical thing and all of that sort of thing. I really do think of myself as an artist. And in my bio, I usually write something like I'm an artist and a printmaker, because those things are connected, those two circles overlap, but they're not entirely the same thing. Again, this is the privilege of my life and my job. I can sit and think about things that I want to do and try to figure out how to do them. And I have the support, both in terms of the space and a little bit of funding, and the institution saying, yeah, no, this is what you're here to be doing. I can try all sorts of different things. So I think, like any good artist, I have a place where I'm positioned from, but that doesn't hold me down. I can kind of make the work that I need to make based on the inclination I have, or the ideas I have, or the excitement I have, or the obsession that I have. Yeah, I love it all. I love doing it all. I also love bicycles. My studio is filled. I've got about 5 bikes in here. I bike through the winter. And even though riding a bicycle is not an art practice, I'm sure one could articulate it as such. It is part of that bigger thing that makes me who I am. I like to fix things. I like to tinker. That's why I like machines and printmaking presses and all that sort of thing. So being a cyclist and fixing my own bikes and fixing my grad students' bikes for them when things go wrong for them, that is another part of who I am. But it connects very much to being the little kid in my grandpa's basement who was like working on something with a tool while he was standing next to me working on something actually for real that an adult needed to work on. For my whole life, I've, for good and for bad probably, have not feared jumping into figuring out how a thing works. So whether that's an art practice or an art technique, or how a bike works, or how you renovate a house, or how you fix an old car, or how you whatever problem kind of arises, it's about, I think printmaking has just folded into who I am as a person in terms of all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, I've noticed as I've started embracing my creativity and the things that I want to pursue, I have gotten bolder with trying new things and like diving into new things. There are some things where I'm like, make sure to like do my research and think about it and plan it a little bit, but it's a process, it's growth, and I find new things that I enjoy. Like, so I work from home, recently moved my office from being in my bedroom to another room, so my office is like a separate room, which meant I got a new desk, which meant I had to assemble my desk.
Sure.
I had a lot of fun doing that. It turns out I do enjoy assembling furniture for some reason.
So, I mean, I can dig it. I totally understand where you're coming from. Maybe it's that adjacent word again, it's creative adjacent, or it's adjacent to the things that you think you like to do or that you do like to do, and it just scratches an itch.
It's creating and making something with a tangible result following specific instructions.
Oh, well, I mean, that's kind of printmaking, actually. So there you go. There you go.
I guess it depends on how you're approaching printmaking, if you're relying a lot on a screwdriver.
Right. Or like little silver Allen keys or whatever. But I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. I mean, because printmaking does rely on, there's rules and there's processes and there's an order in which you should do things. Doesn't mean you have to do it that way. And that brings to mind thinking about, there's a whole world out there of people who like IKEA hack, right? Like they buy IKEA furniture and then they thinking about like a Lego kit, but then translating that idea into IKEA furniture and remaking things, reimagining things, and not just how do I make this shelf a different shelf, but like making art out of it, or sculptural things, or just other kind of installation-y things. So yeah, I don't think it's so far off.
That is fascinating. I would love to see that. I like following the instructions. I do have some Legos here, but they're like little nano blocks, and I collect the little nano block sets for places that I've been. So that's why I'm like, I've got like, I think it's like the Glen Canyon Dam. I've got the Petrified Forest. I've got one for Montezuma's Castle. That was the first one that I got.
I love the Lego kits as we think about this. But one of the things about having kids in my life has taught me is that, you build a Star Wars X-Wing fighter and it's perfect on the shelf to like admire. And then at some point, a bunch of 8-year-olds come and just, you hear, oh, and then crunch, and it's gone. The universe has now claimed it into the huge suitcase full of Lego pieces, and one can attempt to put it back together, or there's an opportunity there to
put it back together, but with lots of with random colors interspersed.
Right, absolutely. Or you'll never find those 2 little aerials that are supposed to be the end of the thing, and then you're gonna have to like figure out how you're gonna get through your life with some other thing there, or not the thing there.
Yeah, and then by the time you've adjusted, you added a new thing there, and you're happy with the new thing that you have there. Then you find the thing that you were looking for, and now you're like, okay, what am I going to do with you?
Yeah, no, you're really in a situation there where you have to decide what the path forward is. Love that we've gone from art to IKEA furniture to
Legos.
the Lego bucket. Amazing.
That is how a lot of conversations with me go. Undiagnosed ADHD, would not be surprised if there was ADHD, but it's just like, ooh, shiny, this. Sometimes I'll start with like a couple of questions, but I'm like, yeah, let's be real. We're gonna find some random tangent to go on.
Yeah.
And it's going to probably be better than whatever I had planned to talk about. So that's a secret, Cap. I just don't plan.
Yeah, there you go. Amazing. Love it.
Before we wrap up, just where can people find you? Where can people find your stuff?
Well, you can almost always find me in the basement in the Riddell Center at the U of R, because that's where my studio is. So I'm in here at least 5 days a week, and I teach and work out of here, and this is where all of my stuff is. Of course, so if your listeners are art students or theoretically going to be art students, find me at the U of R. My Instagram is Professor Truszkowski, which is a mouthful, but it's all one word, Professor Truszkowski. And unfortunately, so my website is professortruszkowski.org, but at this exact moment, I am migrating it to a different server because my other server is just double the price on me and trying to bill me, and I caught them before they could do it. So now I'm redoing my website. So I've got a website up right now, but I don't know for how much longer until I switch my site over, but that's a digression as well. ProfessorTruszkowski.org is where you'd find me. You might find some of my work at Slate Art Gallery on 13th Avenue. And if you happen to be in Ontario at the end of October, you can find me all up and down the Highway 401 giving talks at a whole bunch of universities and visiting some art friends coming up. So, yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
All right, well, this has been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to probably kidnapping you to talk another time.
Sounds great. Nice meeting you and nice talking to you, and take care.
Nice to meet you too. You as well.
If you like what we're doing, you can follow us on social media and join the conversation over at An Unexpected Art Lesson on Threads, Blue Sky, and Substack. And you can also support us over on Patreon, get early access to episodes and other fun things at patreon.com/anunexpectedartlesson.